منیر برادران was held in 2 prisons with فروزان.
در یه دوره کوتاهی که در قطر سال امکان بازی وجود داشت، امکان توپ داشتن.
During the short period when we had a ball and were allowed to play in Ghazal-Hesar, we enthusiastically lined up around the court in the afternoons to watch Furuzan play. I remember, once her team played against a team of repenters, and Furuzan humbly participated in this game. We, of course, cheered for Furuzan's team. We wanted them to win, and they did. After the 1988 massacre, I was taken to solitary confinement, the same cell to which other women were sent in previous years. On the wall of this cell, I saw a writing that said, "O God, help me to be a Sham-e Furuzan, a radiant candle of Abdi, the servant of your path." When I discovered this poem, I was saddened greatly. I knew immediately that Furuzan Abdi had written it. Furuzan had a wordplay in that sentence alluding to herself. She depicted her own principles in this sentence. I suspect, before being executed, Furuzan was probably kept in this cell.
Despite threats from the government and official death certificates that listed the cause of death as natural, to this day families and friends gather in Khavaran Cemetery outside of Tehran. They pay respects to thousands buried in mass graves, many of them students, including Furuzan. Raised in a politically active family, Munir Baradaran was first imprisoned before the revolution. She was arrested again in 1981. Her brother was also arrested and was executed soon after.
What I experienced in 1981 was beyond my imagination. Torture was indiscriminate and wide-ranging, beyond one's imagination. As you know, scores of people were executed there at that time. Twice a week, mass executions were carried out. Each time, around 100 people were executed. We could hear the firing squads from our ward. This was the face of Evin. In the summer of 1988, when the massacre was taking place, we had absolutely no contact with the outside world. There were no visitors, no newspapers, and no television. We had no news from the world outside. We knew that something terrifying was happening inside the prison, but we didn't know what it was. Our cellmates were taken away. Everybody waited her own turn.
Munira spent 10 years in prison under constant threat of death. Upon her release, she fled to Germany, where she works today for truth and justice for those who died or suffered as she did in Iran's prisons.
I would be very happy if students throughout the world showed their solidarity with Iranian students who struggle for freedom. Iranian students outside Iran are fighting the same battle along with them. I think global solidarity is a beautiful thing. It is a great support for our students to know that there are others, of other nationalities, who think about them.
2 decades after the revolution, a new generation of young Iranians question the values and the wisdom of revolutionary violence. They claim their most basic rights. They want to freely study, associate, and express themselves. They want an end to discrimination and a life with dignity. On the 7th and 8th of July in 1999, a group of Tehran University students led a peaceful demonstration protesting the government closure of a newspaper. The newspaper had investigated the brutal murders of political dissidents and pointed to agents of the government as the murderers. After the demonstration, early on July 9th, students moved to the university dormitories, where security forces, plainclothes militia, and a special police force launched a violent attack. Students saw this as a shocking punishment for a peaceful protest. This incident sparked the most widespread and violent public protests in nearly 2 decades. A week of demonstrations and clashes followed the dormitory attacks, with an unknown number of students killed and injured by security forces in Tehran and other cities. On the 1-year anniversary of these events, a 17-year-old high school student, Kianush Sanjari, attended a protest outside the gates of Tehran University. As in the previous year, militia descended on the scene and a peaceful protest exploded in sudden violence.
Before being arrested by the security forces, I was attacked by the plainclothes militia forces who beat me very badly. I remember that they were pulling my hair. The police had to save me from the grip of the paramilitary Basij and the others. They threw me in the security forces car and then took me to the section 240 of the Evin prison for solitary confinement. The first time I was arrested, it was really hard. I had no idea about prison conditions and how they interrogated people. And because of this lack of information, I was under tremendous physical and psychological pressure. We had a blindfold on when they brought us into the prison or in the interrogation room. We had to put a blindfold on when we walked through the hallways. I had a blindfold on and could not see anything when I was talking to the interrogator and was being slapped by him. The interrogators do anything possible to force you to comply with their demands. What helps you to hold up is the strong belief for which you have been arrested. I think this is the only thing that keeps the prisoners from breaking down. You face difficult moments in solitary confinement. Then I felt weak, I felt defeated. But around me, in other cells, there were others. Then you feel better knowing that there are others like you around you. In the past decades, there were prisoners in these very cells fighting for freedom. They even sacrificed their lives for it. Not only in Iran, in many other countries as well. I really thought of this, and this gave me courage. Every time I was freed from prison, I wrote down what had happened to me in prison. In 2005, my most serious charge was writing a blog. I was charged with publishing daily news about political prisoners on my blog, publishing news of someone being arrested, and publishing what's happening to political prisoners. I befriended many activists, many of whom were political prisoners or family members of political prisoners. They were in touch with me. They would call me and tell me news of their loved ones in prison. My blog was a window to reflect my thoughts and beliefs for me and my friends. It echoed the voices of my friends who were oppressed and imprisoned. My blog gave me the opportunity to connect to the world around me and even the world outside Iran.